Tonight we're performing dinner magic. Hey guys, it's Jara with Wicked Prepared. Welcome to the channel. Thanks for stopping by. Tonight I would love it for you to join me while I make dinner. Now what I'm making for dinner tonight is not really that magical. It's actually something pretty common, but what's magical is the way that I'm going to make it. Now we're going to be cooking tonight completely from our food storage. We're going to be using only shelf-stable foods and water. Now I do think it's important to have a good repertoire of recipes that use your food storage. That way if you ever find yourself in an emergency and you have to rely on that food, you know some dishes to make. Now what I'm going to be making tonight is what I call a shepherd's pie. I know I'll have some people yelling at me down in the comments telling me it's not really a shepherd's pie because it doesn't use lamb. Tonight I'm using Hamburg, ground beef. I know some other people here in Maine who call this dish Chinese pie. So really it just depends on what you grew up calling it, and whatever you want to call it, that's what we're making tonight. But tonight we're making it as a one dish meal. Now watch how I'm going to do this. Okay, to start with here I've got my pan and I've sprayed it with nonstick cooking spray. Now this is a 2-quart baking dish, glass baking dish. It's 9 inches across. I also could have used my square baking dish, my 9-inch square, but I have no idea where that's gone. But I'm going to start by we're going to be using our freeze-dried food tonight, and I'm going to start by putting 1.5 cups of the hamburger in the bottom. Now I don't have to cook this because it's already been cooked before it was freeze-dried, so it's super handy for dishes like this. There's a cup and a half. Now that would be about the equivalent of about 3/4 pound of ground beef. Flatten that out there. And then next I'm going to sprinkle over 1/8 cup of scrambled egg powder. I'm just going to try to sprinkle that pretty evenly across the ground beef. That was pretty easy. And next I'm going to put 1/4 cup of the bechamel powder, which is a white sauce powder. Once again, I'm going to try to get this pretty evenly across the top. Couple clumps there. I'm just going to break it up with my measuring cup. Okay, so next I've got 1 cup of water here. Now I've got hot water in here because I'm going to be adding some bouillon. This is 1 cup of water, and I'm going to add to it 1 teaspoon of beef bouillon. Add 1 teaspoon of beef bouillon, and then I'm going to add 2 teaspoons of Worcestershire sauce. Now I have this in this little container because just like a lot of other things, I buy the very big container, the very big jug, and then I just refill this smaller bottle because it's pretty difficult to work with the really big jug, but it's more economical. So now I'm just going to give this a little whisk and just pour this evenly across the top of my meat mixture. So next I'm going to start layering on the veggies. I'm going to start with some carrots. I'm going to do 1/4 cup of most of these veggies. So 1/4 cup of the carrots. Just sprinkle them evenly. And then I'm going to do 1/4 cup of some red bell peppers. Now really you could mix this up and put any type of vegetables in it that you wanted, any different vegetables, whatever your taste is. Just try to keep the amounts about equivalent so that the water amounts won't be off. So next I'm going to do 1/4 cup of mushrooms. I love mushrooms. Mushrooms is one of my absolute favorite vegetables to add to a dish. Not everyone in my family feels that way, but I really like mushrooms. Next I'm going to do 1/4 cup of green peas. I'm going to do 1/4 cup of green beans. Let's see, take a look at these green beans. I know a lot of people are curious if they've never tried freeze-dried foods before. They really look just like the fresh green beans. When food is freeze-dried, it maintains its cellular structure, which is why it tastes so much like fresh, so it doesn't shrivel up and break down like dehydrating actually does. Next, I'm going to put in, this is the only vegetable that's going to be different. I'm going to use 1/8 of a cup of green chilies. So next I'm going to do 1/4 cup of butternut squash. I'm going to put another 1/4 cup of these because they're big chunks, so they're not spreading out very well. So that's about 1/2 cup of the butternut squash. See, there's so many beautiful veggies in this dish, and that's part of what I love about cooking with my freeze-dried food. I was just talking to Mr. Wicked Prepared about this the other day. Now, when I was younger, maybe in college, I had no kids, maybe one kid, I used to put veggies in everything. I chopped veggies, so many veggies for every dinner that I made. And then as I got older and I got more kids and got more busy, I sort of started leaving the veggies out just because chopping them was so much work. And especially if you might have a kid who was picky and was going to say, I'm not going to eat that because it's got onions in it or whatever. So I just started leaving out all those extra veggies that I used to put in, which added so much goodness to the food. And then it all came full circle when I started using freeze-dried food, and I realized that all of the chopping was already done for me. I didn't have to peel or chop anything. It's all ready to go. So I started adding a lot more veggies to my foods again. So the last veggie that I'm going to add here is sweet corn. Now, I usually think of corn as being, you know, one of the most basic ingredients of a shepherd's pie. So I'm going to go with 1/2 cup of the corn, assuming I have 1/2 cup left here. So now we've got this dish so full of good veggies and everything. And then next what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some cheese and potato. Now I'm going to be adding 1/2 cup of cheddar cheese. Can you imagine? This is freeze-dried cheddar cheese. What other way would you be able to have shredded cheddar cheese in a grid down emergency without refrigeration? This is the most amazing stuff. It also makes a great low-carb keto snack. You can just snack on it dry. You can add it into a snack mix. It's delicious. So I've got 1/2 cup of that. And then I'm going with a full cup of potato pearls. Now these potato pearls, if you take a look at them, they're a little bit different than your typical instant mashed potatoes. Now the reason I'm using these instead of using Thrive Life's mashed potato flakes is because these have all of the seasonings like butter and salt. They're super buttery and yummy. Thrive Life used to have a product like this, and then I think it was when they decided to be more sort of a healthy, natural, single ingredient type of, you know, food company that they got rid of these and they went to their mashed potato flakes, which are just that. They're just potato. Now, typically that's a good thing, but I do like to add some butter, some milk, some sour cream, things like that when I mix them up, just because we like that flavor in our mashed potato. So to keep this as a one dish meal, I'm going to use these potato pearls because I don't have to add anything to them, which would take an extra dish. So I've got a cup of the potato pearls, and I'm just going to sprinkle these right over the top. I've got a couple veggies poking through, but that's okay. So the next thing I'm going to do is pour on 2.5 additional cups of water, and I'm just going to use the same cup that I mixed up with the broth and the Worcestershire. That'll be just fine. So I've got 2 cups here, and then I've got an additional 1/2 cup of water. So that was a total of 2.5 cups in this final step. Now behind me I've got my oven preheating to 375 degrees. I'm going to cover this casserole dish. This is one of my old casserole dishes that has its own cover, but if your dish does not have an oven safe cover, you could just use tin foil. Just cover it somehow, and we're going to go ahead and put this in the oven. Now one final step before I throw this in the oven, I am going to go ahead and sprinkle some chives on top. I just think that would be pretty, and I love chives with my potato. This smells so chivey. So I'm just going to do a tablespoon of chives right over the top. Now I'm going to go ahead and bake that for about 30 to 45 minutes until all the liquid is absorbed and all the food is refreshed and it's ready to go. All right, guys. So this looks and smells absolutely amazing. I can't wait to dig into this. All right, let's see how this is. Wow. That looks and smells amazing. Look at that. I'm really glad I put the chives on top. I think that gave it a great finishing touch. All right, guys, check this out. Now it's time to see if it tastes as good as it smells. Mmm. That was really good. You can actually see the gooey cheese. Can you see that? That really was magical. So that really was an amazing meal cooked completely from our food storage. Now the recipe said that you could spritz the top with a little more water as it bakes if you need to, if the potato stayed dry. Now my potato wasn't dry at all. My potato had plenty of water. I might have added a couple more tablespoons of water just down into the bottom. Would have been fine because it wasn't liquidy at all. It wasn't juicy at all. So it probably could have used another tablespoon or two of water. Now I did bake this in my regular oven, which obviously in a grid down emergency you might not have access to your oven. We do have an oven that runs on propane fuel like a camp stove, and I will link that down below in the description if you want to check that out. If you don't have something like that, you can make an oven pretty easily out of a cardboard box with some tin foil, some aluminum tape, and some charcoal. And the other option you could do is you could do this in a heavy skillet, especially a cast iron, over a low heat with a lid on it, and I think it would come out about the same way. Now this meal really was so fast and easy. I don't think it took me any more than maybe 10 or 15 minutes to put everything together, and then most of that was me running my mouth. Having all the veggies chopped, prepped, and ready to go, not having to cook the meat and drain the meat, which also saved me an extra pan. If I had had to do that, this wouldn't have been a one-pan meal. Now, by the same token, imagine that I had used canned vegetables for this shepherd's pie. After opening up all those cans just to use a quarter cup of each vegetable, I'd have a lot of leftover vegetables going bad. But the freeze-dried vegetables can sit on the shelf and be good for a whole year after being opened. These foods are not only wonderful for food storage, but they're also really great to save you time every day. If you enjoyed this recipe, give me a big thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of our upcoming content. If you made it all the way to the end of the video, leave me a pie emoji down in the comments. I'm Jara with Wicked Prepared. Survive today, thrive tomorrow. We'll see you next time.